Hello and welcome to the Ell'Chemist, and this is Soul Talk Sessions with a Scorpio Moon.
Rockets on the day.
So welcome to episode 2, and today, as per the title, I'm going to be talking about triggers and embracing our feminine energy, and also just the duality and the difference between the masculine and feminine energy, because I've been kind of really sitting with this realization recently of coming from a place of masculine energy from, myself, my own actions and experiences that I have, but also just realizing that as a whole, as humanity, we do all seem to come from just like this real strong place of masculine energy. And I feel like that's based a lot around the fact that we are constantly just living from our nervous system. Like I read something this morning that says we never really encounter the world. All we experience is our own nervous system. And that just really got me, because that is literally just it. And if anything, I've been having conversations, or I've just been having realizations recently about how, there's a lot of us that say, oh, I want to be more spiritual, I want to be more connected, or I want to be more in touch with this part of me or that part of me. But what we seem to forget is that we already are that. Like, we already are deeply spiritual, we already are divine, we already are deeply connected to source, to God, to the universe, whatever you want to call it. And life is just a process of remembering that and coming back into that place, like coming back home to our sovereign, that sovereignty that we have just had stripped from us, that our whole lives have taught us to forget. And so firstly, before I get any deeper into that, I'll just give you a brief little update into the past 2 weeks of my life. So obviously, episode 1, I shared a little bit about my dating experience that I was having with a guy from my town, and it's probably from from that and from what's happened over the last 2 weeks that I started to, see this kind of masculine energy and feminine energy, or feel this masculine feminine energy stuff coming up quite strong, and realising a few things about it. So in the past 2 weeks, I definitely haven't heard from this guy, but well, I did, but that's only because I reached out to him first. And firstly as well, I just want to say, being a Scorpio moon, even though it's a fixed sign, it is ruled by Mars and Pluto. And Mars is the planet of action and passion and, fire and stuff like that. Pluto is the planet of transformation. And Scorpio is the sign of death and rebirth. And it's like a constant process of transformation with Scorpio. And it is a constant form of change, which always bothered me that it's a fixed sign, because I just feel, with being ruled by the planet of transformation and therefore being change, it should kind of be mutable. But with my Gemini sun, that is a mutable sign, and I just find that I can adapt really easily to change and transformation. So it's my sun sign complements my Scorpio moon in that way, with allowing transformation and death and rebirth to maybe flow a little bit easier through me than it would for somebody who maybe has a Scorpio moon with, I don't know, an Aries sun or something, another kind of fixed sign. If Aries is fixed, I'm not actually 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, the person that I am now to who I was when I first recorded that first episode 2 weeks ago has transformed in one way or another. Transformed in a way of realising the places that I was coming from, the way that I was responding or reacting emotionally to this experience, and coming from also a place of feeling like I was really in my feminine, like really in my intuitive energy, like, wow, I can't stop thinking about this guy. And if I'm thinking about him this much, then he must be thinking about me as well, because energetically and intuitively, I just know this in my gut, rather than realising that it's just my fucking nervous system, like, screaming out for me to take some sort of action to fix or control an outcome or something like that. So I did end up I'm going to blame some of, like, obviously I read tarot as well, right? And I do my tarot pretty much every day just to see what the energy is. But like, I also get real stuck scrolling through TikTok or something and watching all these other tarot readers, and I swear they're all there just to feed your delusion, because they're like, oh, this person you're thinking about right now is thinking about you. They're going to come in and they're going to tell you that you are the love of their life, and blah, blah. And you're like, yes, I knew it. But really, that's just feeding your nervous system, like the absolute desperation in your nervous system for external validation, to validate these fears and these wounds and whatever, to not be true, to be like, no, I'm not unworthy, no, I'm not unlovable, because energetically, even though I'm not receiving any messages or any kind of indication that this person is feeling this way about me, the tarot reader on TikTok said that I am, so therefore I must be. And it's just, we get really stuck in that. And well, I say we, I hope I'm speaking for more of us than just me. I 100% know that I am, though, and that's my intuition talking. So let's get into it anyway. So I just wanted to talk, obviously, about what has been moving through me recently, and something that I do feel that a lot of, or many of us do experience, and that is, it's just like this question that I've had, like, what if we think our intuition is actually just our nervous system screaming, our nervous system just looking for the answers, looking for that control. Like, I really, really thought I was being intuitive, reaching out to this guy and acting on this deep feeling I just couldn't ignore. I really did. I just thought, if I'm having this feeling, I'm carrying it so strongly, then it has to be for a reason. And the nervous system, wounds, past wounds, things that we pick up from our life, from our relationships, will push you into that place of needing that justice, needing that answer to settle that feeling. But really, what I was doing was stepping out of alignment with my feminine energy and just straight into control. I was ignoring the opportunity to surrender, and I was actually ignoring my intuition. As much as I thought that I was acting on it, I was actually ignoring it, which is quite, that's quite a sobering place to bring yourself into, or to come into after actually taking action. And sending a message or reaching out, it wasn't coming from a place of manipulation or because I don't know better or anything like that. It was literally just because my nervous system, as the same as others, has been shaped by experiences that made me feel unsafe, unwanted, or out of control in some way, which I'm sure a lot of you can also resonate with. So the moment that I felt that emotional pull to send that message, I acted, and I moved into doing, into pursuit, into the masculine, into, masculine energy, because masculine energy is all about like acting and pursuit and kind of control. But I'll touch into understanding where a kind of divine masculine and a wounded masculine comes from just a bit later. So yeah, really, I shouldn't have reached out, and what I needed to do was sit with myself, nurture the feelings that I was having, and receive the lesson in it. Be open and receptive to receiving what that feeling and what that experience was telling me in that moment. And that's the thing, like, we're not actually taught to just be. We're never taught to do that. We're never taught to do nothing, to sit in silence, to surrender to any moment, because that feels like we're failing at something. We're taught that, action, being busy, or, always just doing something, and it is the best way, and that rest should be avoided. And that's all just deeply embedded within us. But we do have to learn it ourselves, because it's not taught to us. We do have to learn it ourselves, and we can only learn it ourselves through having these kind of experiences in our lives within our relationships, intimate, friendship, family, at work, at home, in everyday life. We have to therefore learn it ourselves, because it is not taught unless you do go to college or something and learn about psychology and everything like that, and how we do respond to these kind of situations, obviously. And but instead what we're taught to do is to fix, to fight, to push, and we then call it strength. But what I'm learning is that actually the deepest form of strength is in softness. It's in surrender, in choosing not to act just because you feel uncomfortable. Because the feminine isn't passive. It is not passive. The feminine is magnetic. It's powerful. It's the energy of truth, of allowing, of honouring what is. It is just the pure and ultimate surrender to what is, without trying to bend it to what we wish it was, because that then comes from a wounded masculine, or like the nervous system. We need to control the outcome here. We need to turn this experience into something that benefits us in one way or another, whether that be validating our feelings for the better or for the worse, because both of those things feel good, and I'll touch on that in a minute as well. But I think, with many of us, men and women, we have just lived too long in systems and relationships that reward masculine, wounded masculine, that reward that action or control, even when it's out of balance, even when it's out of alignment with our sovereignty, with what we really want, with what we truly need, with what we truly desire, with what is truly going to push us into evolution, rather than stuck in this fight and flight of our nervous system. And what I've noticed is that actually in pretty much all of my relationships, I've been pulled into that over-functioning, over-explaining, over-giving energy, because of living from my nervous system that didn't feel safe to just be still. And it's been really interesting to think about and acknowledge the environments that I have been in within my relationships that have triggered a response in me that is really unnatural to who I am, and then choosing to stay in those situations, even though I am, the part of me, the side of me that is coming out is not natural to who I am. Just to give you like an example of what I'm talking about here. So say my ex-girlfriend, she used to say that I'm really insecure. She's like, you're insecure, you're jealous, you overthink, you do all of this. And I really adapted, or I really kind of allowed that to dictate who I was. I was like, yeah, maybe I am really insecure, I am jealous, I do overthink. But then when I took a step back from that and looked at how I showed up in my relationships, where I felt safe and secure and seen and heard and loved and appreciated, I realised that actually I'm not insecure in those relationships. I'm not insecure or jealous, or I don't overthink. I don't question how that person feels about me. My friends, my family, I don't question that, and I don't feel like a side of me that is unnatural gets brought out in those situations. Maybe sometimes, some friendships, if they're coming to an end, or we're all changing and transforming in our own ways, so if sometimes you're moving out of alignment with someone, it might trigger a behavior in you that is a little bit more unnatural. But it was just the realization that actually I am not insecure or jealous or an overthinker, but the environment that I am in with her, with my ex-girlfriend, was creating this version of me, because she did not offer safety or security or honesty or a true kind of offer of love, because she was deceitful. She would lie. She would text her ex behind my back. She would change her ex's name in her phone, so I wouldn't see that she's texting her ex. So she would do these things. The relationship that I had with her started off with a lie, so it was already creating an environment that was out of balance with my feminine, with my sovereignty, and it was creating an environment for me to constantly just be on high alert, hypervigilant in my nervous system, in fight and flight. And I think a lot of us get into those relationships and stay in those relationships for far too long, where we then get so deep into it that we get to a point where we start to believe that we are those words. We are insecure, we are jealous, we are overthinkers, we are anxiously attached and everything like that, when really we're not. It's just the environment that we are in that is creating that. And that can happen in so many different circumstances as well. I can think about when I go to London, right? I don't really enjoy London. I find it extremely overstimulating. Just too many people, too much energy, too many big buildings and stuff. It's very overstimulating for me. And I've been there with my mum and my nephew, and when I'm there, a side of me is brought out, which again is just unnatural to me. It doesn't bring out my calm, it doesn't bring out my peace, it doesn't bring out my chill and who I am basically. And so I've shown myself to be quite snappy or quite aggressive or just a certain way when I'm in this place, because the environment doesn't align with what makes me feel comfortable and safe. And that's what I mean. It's just like that aspect of realising who you are, or what does make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable or safe or unsafe, can happen anywhere, not just in intimate relationships, but literally in physical environments as well. Even if you just pop into the shops and suddenly you're like, I don't feel right. I feel like I could fucking punch someone right now, or I could, I'm not saying that I go around punching people. That definitely doesn't happen. But when you just feel extremely highly agitated for absolutely no reason, something about the environment is just not making you feel safe and secure. And so it's all right to fucking gap it out of there, to smoke bomb out of there and be like, I need to go home, I need to go to my safe space, because it's your body telling you that something's just not aligned, something's just not right. And that's fine. We can give into that, we can surrender to that, but we don't enough. Like, we'll just persevere and we'll endure it because we feel we don't want to upset the people that we're with, or we don't want to be boring, or we don't want to be classed as something else, even though in that moment we're already being classed as being too much or aggressive or angry, just because we're already in a place of feeling like we just can't be ourselves as our chill, open, receptive selves. And that takes me back to what I read this morning about we don't experience the world, we only experience our nervous system. And that actually comes from the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if anybody's ever read that book, but it's literally like, it's the Bible of truth, not what the actual Bible is, because that Bible is bullshit, but it's the real Bible of truth, right? Read it. It's absolutely fantastic, but it's just so, it just makes so much sense. And, from the moment that we are born, the world is just created to strip us from experiencing the world or experiencing our soul, what our soul wants to experience, because our nervous system and our needs and our wants and our desires and our attachments are all built from the moment that we are born, through our parents, through schools, through our social connections, that we're making from such a young age, for our families, everything like that. And it just really resonated with me reading that, because it did just remind me that being in your nervous system has become so natural and normal to us that we are so disconnected from realising and remembering that there is another path, there is another way of responding or reacting to a situation, which doesn't involve fighting or running away or taking action or giving in to just the pulls and the deep feelings of our nervous system, which is embedded through our entire body from head to toe. And the process of life and the process of what the universe is trying to teach you as we come into this place, as we do grow older and we do grow our self-awareness, it's trying to teach you to come back into that sovereignty and to remember to surrender to the moments without fear, because we're all just so run on fear. It is the fear of being out of control, of pain. We all fear pain or things hurting us, or just anything outside of us that we can't curate to benefit us. That's scary. We all do fear that, but the lesson and the beauty is in just letting it be exactly what it is. So some reflection and things that I've been sitting with, which maybe you can ask yourself these questions as well, is, what are some moments where you thought that you were being intuitive, but now that you think about it, you realise that you're actually coming from fear? Say, for me, reaching out to this guy, I thought I was being intuitive, but really I was coming from fear, because that me reaching out to him thinking, well, I'm feeling this so deeply, he must be thinking about me as well. It's really a place of fear of, even though I've lost him already, I never really had him, but he's gone, that is done. But it was this fear of, but what if there's still a chance, and I don't want him to go elsewhere because I know that I'm better, and blah blah blah. That's not coming from a manipulative place. I do know better, and I do know what the truth is there, but it was just the fear of not being seen for exactly who I am, and so therefore needing to control his idea of who I am, to reach out and be like, hey, well, I can't remember what I said even. I think I just asked for some communication, just some communication and confirmation of what the fuck changed, because it was I was very aware that we went from one end of the spectrum to the other without any explanation or understanding. And I said that I am a big girl, and that I respond real good to truth and honesty, and not so good to dishonesty, ghosting and confusion. And his response, he came back and said that, he just got scared. Not of me. Maybe he did. But he said he just got scared about, what was happening. I was thinking maybe he did get scared of me, which would be hilarious, because that wouldn't be the first time, because I am intense, obviously, with my Scorpio moon energy. But yeah, he said he got scared. He said that it's the story of his life. He doesn't really speak about his emotions very well, and looking back, he wishes that he would have communicated better. But that's when he said, it's the story of my life. I just don't handle my emotions well. And I had a lot of respect for that. I messaged him back and said, I wish that you could have communicated that with me, and maybe if we would have spent more time together, you would have felt a little bit more safer and comfortable to do so. But mad respect for you acknowledging that it is something that you don't do. You don't communicate your emotions, and that you've acknowledged that, and I've got a lot of respect for that. And I said, I appreciate as well that you're coming out of a long relationship that he's been in, like a marriage that he's been in, into the dating world, which is ghetto and it's wild. And also I can acknowledge and accept and take accountability for coming on quite strong. That's just who I am, and I apologise if I'd made him feel kind of uncomfortable or overwhelmed in any way, and he just didn't even reply. So that's the answer that I need there. The external validation, which I'll touch on later. Did I get the external validation? I really loved his response. I thought this is the thing that I think kind of keeps me slightly energetically attached to this person, is because his responses calm my nervous system. I feel like I go in to, reaching out or sending an impulsive message like I did when after we first hung out, and then I didn't hear from him much during this day and sent this impulsive message. Like, his response back, it wasn't reflecting back my impulsivity, it wasn't reflecting back any aggression. It was really calm, and it just really settled me, basically. And I was like, oh, okay, I like this guy because he's not arguing back with me, and I like that. That was like a good thing and a bad thing, because then I was like, wow, he's like calming my nervous system instead of feeding into it. But anyway, I'll touch on that in a bit. Another thing I was thinking, and I also have realised that I need to stop saying so if anybody wants to play a drinking game and drink every time I say you'll be fucking hammered. Anyway, another question that I sat with, and that you can also ask yourself, is like, where do you feel your nervous system pulling you into action? So again, if I was to have asked myself that question before reaching out to this guy, it would have been that moment. And then why? Why is it pulling me into action here? Why is your nervous system pulling you into action for this experience or this whatever that you're having, like this desire that you've got to take action? Why? Why is it doing that? Is it because you want to control the outcome? Is it because you need validation? Is it because you need answers? Is it because you need justice? There's always some form of needing to know, because the unknown, no, we can't deal with that. We need to know. We all need to know. But that's something to sit with. Where is your nervous system pulling you into action unnecessarily? Get curious about that. Because why? Ask why. And that is always such a really deep and amazing question to ask yourself. Who am I? Why? Who am I in this moment? Why? Why do I feel this way? Why is this, like, asking why and listening to the answers that you get, being aware of the signs that you get, can be really amazing. It can really open up all these different kinds of perspectives for you. I just had an image of the Hanged Man there from tarot. You can just really change your perspective on a certain situation when you pause before just moving straight in with that action. I mean, you ask yourself, wait, why do I feel so pulled to do this? What is the lesson here? Just getting a bit curious about it. And then another thing that I thought of was, like, how does it feel to sit with something instead of reaching out or trying to fix or push for an answer or an outcome? Like, how, and that is it. Like, how does it feel to sit it with the unknown, to sit with the confusion, to sit with the injustice, to sit without answers? If you are anything like me, which I'm sure a lot of you are, that is really uncomfortable. And that is what we're all kind of taught and curated to be in this life is to feel uncomfortable with discomfort. We do not want to sit in discomfort. It's not good enough for us at all, because we kind of love, it was like what I said in my last episode when I said alchemizing my feelings. I can write them into, I just said, I can write them into, I can write messages that I wanted to send to a person into my notes app, but not send it. But there is also then a part of me that I'm very aware of, which that's not good enough, because I want the response. I want to feed my nervous system with, I don't necessarily want to call it chaos, because it might not be chaos. As I've said, reaching out to this guy and his response didn't feed chaos at all. It actually fed it settling. Maybe this guy is just extremely good at talking the talk but not walking the walk. Who knows? And he's actually playing me at a game. And I'm not, anyway, no, I digress. But, sitting with discomfort, we've all got this addiction to chaos or just imbalance and stuff. And I remember even having this conversation with my ex-girlfriend once, and I remember exactly where I was. I was sat in my car outside the house that I used to live in, talking to her on the phone, and she said something. It was probably one of the most what's like good things that she said. It was one of the things that she said that I was like, wow, you're fucking so right there. But also it was coming from a place of how I was reacting to the environment that she was creating for me. But she said that from my past relationships, I am so used to chaos or argumentative situations, or, just feeding that worst case scenario, feeding the wound. I'm so used to that I don't understand the opposite. I don't understand the calm and the surrender and the peace. And that was really true. And it was like, oh shit, maybe I do kind of seek this in my relationships in some way, some form of chaos, because that's all I know. That's all I've come from. That's all I've been made aware of. That's all I've ever experienced. So anything opposite to that, I don't really know how to function. That seems a little bit off balance, because coming from very destructive and abusive and dysfunctional relationships, intimately in my life, my intimate relationships, and I guess in some way growing up seeing a dysfunctional relationship through my parents in one way or another, which I can dive into deeper at a much later date. That's normality for me. That is normal. That's what I considered relationships to be. So it's like I seek that rather than seeking the peace and the calm and the softness, which is then coming from this masculine, or this wounded masculine energy, which I've discovered that I come from a lot in my relationships, which I feel like a lot of humanity does. So just to get curious with those questions, and then realise that our triggers that we feel in our bodies, in different environments, in relationships, in places, with family, at work, they are our messengers. They're like our pages of tarot, or the knights, should I say. They're coming in with a certain energy or a certain lesson or a certain message to give you a lesson in that experience, for you to pause and to be receptive to what it is trying to tell you, to what the universe or whatever this is coming in is trying to tell you. And with our triggers as well, they push us to act and control, but not all action is aligned. And I feel that's what we do a lot, is we convince ourselves that the action that we are taking is aligned with our truth, with our intuition, with what is going to be best for us. But it's not, because that's also coming from a real place of ego. That's also really coming from a heightened and triggered nervous system right there. So it's like we get triggered and then we are just pushed to take control and to act. And sometimes sometimes taking that action is actually just an escape route from a feeling that we're too afraid to sit with, from the discomfort, from the unknowing, from the lack of control. We're too afraid to sit with those emotions. And so we take the action thinking that this is what our trigger needs. And that is definitely what the trigger needs, because the trigger wants to feed off that action, wants to feed off that outcome, wants to feed off that control. And it's also because external validation feels so fucking good. And it's what I touched on earlier, which I wanted to speak about. External validation, we're all taught we don't need it. We don't need it. You know, that's something that is embedded in us. Once again, we all seek it in one way or another. External validation is fuck it. It's like sex. It feels amazing to be validated externally, even if you act and get a negative response or you get a positive one. If you act on your your trigger or your nervous system, and you are seeking this external validation. So for an example, so this is again like talking about how this guy's responses kind of didn't give me the external validation that my nervous system needed. So I acted on it because my nervous system kind of wanted a response for him to be like, yeah, I just wasn't interested in you, or some sort of negative response. So I could have been like, ha, knew he was a fucking cunt. I knew he was a twat. Like, that could have validated my nervous system to be like, yeah, I knew I was right about what I was feeling, even though I was feeling before that we were so connected and aligned, and it's my intuition. But it's exactly the same as well if you get a positive response. You're like, ha, I knew he was the love of my life. I'm definitely not saying that at all. That's not a feeling I had. I didn't even touch on that. But it's just, that's an example. If you reach out to something, or you take action on something, whether you get a positive or a negative response, it is that validation to be like, ha, yes, I knew that it was going to be negative, or I knew it was going to be positive. And then you then dictate your life or how you show up to the remainder of that experience, or to other situations in your life, based on that external validation that you had there in that moment. I hope that makes sense. It really makes sense in my mind, but it's like, okay, I can also give you another example. I guess this is an example, like with what I'm going through with my ex-girlfriend at the moment. Like, we are still in contact. We do need to continue to talk because we did end up actually getting married. So she is my ex-wife, and we got married for kind of visa reasons. That's a whole nother story, but we do need to stay in contact because of going through the separation and the divorce and everything like this. And I've known this girl is a compulsive liar. Like, I do have a lot of love and respect for her still. I'm not going to take that away from it, but this girl is a compulsive liar. She's coming into a place now where she's realising this. She's kind of blaming it all on her mental health diagnosis, which, fair enough. But I've known since 2 years ago when we broke up, and that she told me that she'd filed her separation. I've known that she's been lying, and I have just been kind of begging in a subtle way for her to just fucking confirm that she's been lying. Like, not just for my benefit, but for hers. Because it's like, girl, if you're carrying this lie around with you for so long, God, that must be heavy. God, that must just be so draining, to just have to show up with a lie all the time. Like, lying is so detrimental. Like, just be honest. It's just so freeing. And I'm giving you a safe space to do that. And I always thought that I always gave her a safe space to be honest with me because of how much I would be honest and share with her. But she did lie to me literally from the moment we started talking, which created the environment. But again, I digress. But recently, over the past couple of weeks, she has confirmed that she actually hasn't done anything about us being separated or divorced. And it's like, aha, there's that validation that I needed. And God, it feels good. It feels so good. And sometimes the validation to confirm your true beliefs is a good feeling. It's like when you're being gaslit. Gaslighting is extremely detrimental. It can massively impact your brain, how you function in reality, because your reality, what you know to be truth, is being told it is not true. But then to come into a place where you are validated for your truth, where you find out that what you've always known to be true is one of the best feelings, because that's your nervous system suddenly settles. You feel the change in your nervous system. And I actually said this to my mum about when my ex, I almost said her name then, when my ex-wife, girlfriend, I don't really like saying ex-wife because that sounds really, really deep, but when she sent me the message to say, okay, yeah, like, you know, I haven't actually done anything, I kind of just forgot. She did give me a bullshit response, but she still confirmed that she hadn't done anything. Immediately, I felt my nervous system, the whole trajectory of my nervous system just change. I felt the change in my internal waves and everything change in that moment. And that just shows like how long you can be carrying something around in your nervous system, and how long it can be affecting the way that you show up, the way that you approach the same kind of experience that you're having with the same person. It just proves how deeply important truth is as well, and honesty, and always just trusting that you know what is sitting with you as real truth inside of you, and kind of not taking any action on it either, because I wasn't doing that with her, even though I knew in my fucking gut that she was lying. And don't get me wrong, I did say to her quite a few times throughout the last couple of years, like, have you actually done it? Can you send me the paperwork? I've been told that I would get paperwork, blah, 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 blah. I didn't really take any like action on accusing her or anything. I just let it be what it was. I just let her keep showing up as she was, with saying, yeah, I've done it, I've paid this money, and I'm going to court on this date, and I'm doing this. It's like, okay, cool, that's what you're doing that. And so I released my attachment to the controlling the outcome, or controlling her ability to actually tell me the truth. I released that attachment, and now in time, 2 years later, 2.5 years later, whatever, I've got that vindication. I've got the confirmation that the truth that I knew in my heart of hearts, which I didn't impulsively take action on or project onto anything, is now confirmed as truth. And that is, my nervous system in that moment switched, and I just feel completely a lot better. But back to what I'm saying about, you know, getting a negative or a positive response from external validation. What about removing that? You know, what about just removing that fixation on the validation of our nervous system triggers? Because that's what it is. If we just remove it, that's where we embrace the feminine. Like I was just saying, like when I stepped out of the attachment to the response or the validation that I needed from my ex, you embrace the feminine energy more. You can surrender to the unknown, and it will eventually just come to you. You soften into the pain. You soften into it rather than controlling it. You soften into it to receive the lesson rather than control the outcome. And as difficult as that is, it just truly rewires your nervous system. Maybe not in that moment, and maybe not to the extent and the feeling of that you want it, because it, as I say, it does feel really, it feels like sex to get validation. It feels like sex to feed your nervous system with the chaos and the action and the like whatever that it needs. But to just soften into that, just soften into it and become receptive is literally is the lesson. Being more within that feminine energy, and stepping a little bit out of that masculine that we're all just so programmed and conditioned to live from. And I'm not demonising the masculine at all. I'm not demonising the masculine whatsoever. And that's why I was saying that there's a difference between divine masculine and wounded masculine. And the nervous system, our desire to control, our desire to be in the know and everything like that, that's a wounded masculine place to be in. And we need to heal that as humanity. So I'm not demonizing the masculine, because we do need it. It's so important, like the duality between feminine and masculine that we all have within us, men and women. It's extremely important to heal and to be aware of, and to understand what part of our wounded masculine and wounded feminine is coming out in these situations which maybe aren't serving us, in these responses or these reactions that aren't actually serving us, that aren't serving us in the moment, and are not going to serve us in the future. Being aware of that. Masculine energy in its divine form, and I don't want that to sound woo-woo, okay, for anybody. Like, don't put a woo-woo sense over that. I don't know how else to really explain it, but healed, maybe. Divine, I'll just say it again. Masculine energy in its healed form, its evolved form, in its sovereign form, let's say, it gives structure. It gives structure and stability. It says, I will hold myself accountable. It is accountability. It protects the inner feminine and creates a safe container for us to express, and for other men to express their feminine energy as well. Evolved masculine form, evolved masculine energy creates a safe container for a divine feminine to express, and creates this beautiful space of creation and place for evolution. A container to express, create, evolve, to love, to nurture, to receive. That is what a divine, an evolved masculine energy can do for the feminine. And that goes for men and women, okay? So the issue isn't about being in a masculine energy, it's being in a wounded masculine energy, where action comes from a place of fear, a place of urgency, a place of anxiety, or needing to manipulate the outcome. That's where it comes from. When we're taking action to manipulate an outcome, or out of fear, that's wounded masculine. So masculine is action, but if it's any kind of action that is manipulative, and I really don't like that word either, but that's just what's coming to me. If it's coming from that place of fear, of needing to control, of the unknown, that is coming from a wounded masculine place. But a grounded and evolved, a divine masculine would be choosing silence, like, honouring that feminine in him, in it, not him, her, anyone, masculine. But it would be choosing the silence over begging or pleading or searching for answers, desperation, attachment, obsession. It would be choosing silence over all of that, setting boundaries from a place of love and worthiness and self-awareness, rather than defense or deflection or something like that. Like, no, these are my boundaries because this and this. No, like, let's be soft. Let's soften into it. Create your boundaries from a place of love and a place of self-respect, because you know your worth, not because you fear what could happen to you or want to control what could happen to you, because it's going to fucking happen, and it's how you show up to that it's the most important. And we're all just learning, I feel, how to honour that duality between feminine and masculine within us. We're all in that place of learning, because we have all been taught to be so disconnected from it. We have all been taught to live from our wounded masculine and our wounded feminine. And it really shows massively in how people do show up to their relationships, how people show up in their life, how people show up in work, to themselves, how they look after themselves, how they deal with their wounds, how they deal with their triggers, how they deal with pain, heartbreak, endings, grief. It shows that we all come from such a wounded place, rather than just a place of softness and receiving and allowing things to be exactly as they are. Like, feminine energy, or divine feminine energy, evolved feminine energy, whatever you want to call it, that teaches us to feel, and masculine teaches us to move and evolve once we've integrated those feelings. So the feminine is for receptivity, for feeling, for nurturing, for compassion. Masculine is for movement and evolution. But once we have created from our masculine energy a safe container for us to integrate those feelings and move us forward in a way that is going to benefit us and help evolve and create that divine feminine and divine masculine within all of us, okay? And like, not all triggers require us to take action. As much as they convince us that they do, not all triggers do actually require us to take action. They require a response from a place of surrender and trust and love. They are a messenger, as I say before. It's a page of cups. You know, a trigger is coming to you, a page of cups. This is your emotion. This is the message for you. I need you to take it, and I need you to sit with it, and I need you to listen and just sit with it. And as hard as that is, it's like what we all need to do. Just be teaching ourselves, practice. It's all a practice to not react on that feeling because the external validation, whether it be positive or negative, whether we can be like, aha, you're a fucking prick, or aha, I love you, whatever that outcome may be, we need to let that go, that attachment to that outcome. We want to either build up our nervous system to confirm that our feelings that this person is a prick is correct, or we want to build up our nervous system to confirm that this person loves us and thinks that we're amazing. Either of those things, we need to detach from that. And I'm sure many of you can understand where I'm coming from there with that. So yeah, it's been a really interesting couple of weeks to just sit with these feelings. And I remember in my last episode, I did say at the end, I'm just going to sit with these feelings that I'm having and not reach out to this guy. And obviously I did. It shows how strong the ability to differentiate between the intuition and the nervous system actually is, and how hard it can be. And it also just shows how important pause and surrender and being receptive is in those moments. Pausing before taking impulsive action, before taking any action, not just impulsively, but just any action whatsoever. What happens if you don't? Like, let's find out what happens if you don't. Get curious with that. I really love that question as well. Okay, for me, for instance, I gave up smoking weed a couple of months ago. Don't get me wrong, I've had a couple of smokes here and there, but I just don't smoke anymore. Like, I used to smoke every single day from morning to night pretty much. I just don't do that at all anymore whatsoever. And one of the things that pushed me was because I'd never not smoked for long enough to know who I was without it. So there's always that question, like, what if it doesn't work out? But what if it does? What if you don't give up? What happens when you don't give up? Who will you be if you don't give up? Will you ever allow yourself to find that out? What if you don't send that message? What if you just wait an hour? What happened in that hour? Nothing. Everything's fine. Everything's still okay. Wait another hour. Wait till the end of the day. Wait until the next day. What if you just don't act on those feelings? What if you just don't give in to that wounded masculine? What if you just don't give in to that wounded feminine? What if you just don't give in to your nervous system and just allow for what is to just be? What if you just do that? See what happens. Get curious with that. Open up to all the possibilities and all the new ways of being, the new perspectives, the new understandings of yourself, the self-awareness, how you show up in your relationships, how you show up to yourself, how you nurture yourself, how much healing you're going to give your divine feminine and your divine masculine and your nervous system, your internal trajectory, how much healing you're going to give yourself in those moments when you do the opposite to what you're always used to doing. That is the lesson, and that is the hardest part, but that is what we all need to practice more of and just be more aware of in those moments, and just find out what happens, just see what happens when we don't act on that. Okay, so that has been episode 2. Thank you so much for listening and staying until this point. I will put another episode out in another couple of weeks, maybe sooner this time, because I do feel like I've just got a lot to say at the moment. But if you are ever interested in maybe sending me a message, if you would like to maybe suggest a topic of something for me to talk about, you can drop me a message to my Instagram. It's at the Ell'Chemist, or you can send me an email, which I'll drop down in the description section below this episode. So feel free to reach out, even if you just want to send a message and just resonate with what I'm saying. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much again for staying and chilling with me, and I'll look forward to catching up with you all again soon. Take it